your friend Bruno, and it looks like we're live. Right now, it's the 4th of July, 2025. And I wish I was outside today, but I can't be. Um, things are just the way they are. But I'm thinking back and remembering the first week of July of 1984. And I'm sorry, folks. I got to light up a cigarette to do this because you had to be there. It was, it was just honest. I wish I could write romantic novels because it would have fit in with one that, well, okay. So a little background. Long and about, I don't know, 1983, when I was working for Father and Son, actually before I was working for Father and Son Shoes, there was a place called College Hills Mall up in Normal, Illinois. And back in the day, people hung out at the mall. And I was kind of, well, I was who I was. You know, I wore overalls a lot. I was, I want to say I was, yeah, I think I'd been working for the Parks and Recreation Department of the city of Wilmington for a while. But it was the off season, it was winter, if I recall correctly, or fall. And kind of off to one side of the center of the mall was a kiosk. And back in the day, when we had these beautiful malls, frequently there would be these kiosks, and there'd be like one or two employees that ran the kiosk, and they sold like prints, just nice prints that were meant to be framed. And they could be movie posters, they could be beautiful sunsets, they could get to be inspirational sayings, all manner of things. And usually there were all these easels or racks that held these prints and whatnot. And they would they would sit there, and they were very, very portable. They could be moved around and such. And nonetheless, and hi, Layla. Welcome aboard. We're just telling a story about something that happened in the first week of 1984. So, any rate, so there was this kind of charming young woman, herself in her early 20s, probably 21 or 22, that worked there. And her name was Hallie. And Hallie had a very special air about her. And I found myself, I went ahead, I found myself attracted to her. And I tried to introduce myself to her. And dressed as I was, more akin to a farmer than anything, which I'm not, never will be. I mean, I kill flowers by worrying them to death. I can barely get my lawn to grow. But she kind of rebuffed me as just unappealing, which she had every right to. So I kind of wrote things off. But I was looking for work. And I had applied for a job at Father and Son Shoes, which at that time was located just a few steps away from that little kiosk that Hallie worked at. And of course, going to work at the shoe store, I had to dress in my finest, not overalls. So I remember going in one day and dressed in nice slacks, and I can't remember what color they were. More than likely, they were either black or possibly even blue jeans. And this was before I wore suspenders. I've always carried a little extra weight, but I could keep my pants up with a belt back then. And my polished boots. These were actually Levi's branded boots. They were very good boots. They were very expensive too. They were actually out of production by this point. But here I go by, and I had hair, and I hadn't started wearing contact lenses yet, I don't think. But no beard, mustache, very, very slight mustache, not like I have today. And walked in and got the job and went to work. Well, Hallie noticed. And suddenly we found each other very much in love with each other. I can remember Hallie and I sitting and talking after she got off work. I can remember us spending moments during breaks, as Mollies do during the middle of the day. When there was no traffic, sometimes you'd wander around and, talk to the people next door. Stride Right, if I remember right, was right next door to us. There were a couple of girls that worked in there. They were kind of nice, but they were way out of my league. But Hallie was approachable. Hallie literally could get along with anybody. And she was studying geriatric recreation at Illinois State University. Smart woman. She knew what was coming down the pike. Hallie herself confessed to me that she was dyslexic. I didn't know myself that I was too, and would later find this out when I went to work in the office of the phone company many, many years later. But this is all before that. And Hallie and I fell in love. And as people often do, often did back then, eventually, we moved in together. And we kind of rose in the social circles that we knew. Well, as things go, eventually we had a bit of a walkabout, and then we got back together again. And Hallie and I became formally engaged. Well, eventually I go back to work for Sperry Rail Service in the spring of 1984. And yeah, Sperry had been jerking me around for a little bit. And with Hallie's help, I had traveled up to Danbury, Connecticut, unannounced, showed up at the headquarters, and basically put my foot down in front of Randy Carosi with Stephanie's help, and was immediately rehired. I was sent first to work on the Cotton Belt Railroad, um, and I remember Hallie taking me to the airport and seeing me off in Bloomington, and worked on the Cotton Belt back towards the St. Louis area. Actually, would have been Chester, Illinois, is probably where my testing would have completed. Quite an adventure. But for 3 months, Hallie and I didn't see each other. She was up in Bloomington working. I was down in Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas working. There was no cell phones back then. And so you used a telephone credit card and a pay station. And you had very little time to actually converse on the phone. It's tough. We could write letters to each other. She could get mine fairly quickly, but I was terrible about writing letters. Hers catching up with me, oi. Yeah. Sometimes a week and a half from the time she would write a letter and deposit it into the mail, and then I would receive it. And you have to remember, Hallie is very dyslexic. But we missed each other terribly. Terribly. Well, we decided to make a plan. We were getting close enough to Illinois. That Hallie believed that with a little help of a couple of friends of ours, that she could possibly make it down to Arkansas for a visit and basically chase the detector car for a week while I was at work, and at least we could have a week together. And this week was going to be the first week of July 1984, which began on a Sunday. She was going to take that week off. We figured that she'd arrive probably on the 2nd or 3rd. I was making enough money that I could put her up in various nice hotels on the way. She wouldn't have to stay on the detector car, God forbid. But at least she could, understand my work, and we could have some precious time together. And then all of a sudden, here comes Jack Finney. I want to say on a Friday, with the message from Sperry Rail Service that I had just been transferred. I want to say we were in Weiner, Arkansas. And I had about 48 hours to find my way from Weiner, Arkansas to Humboldt, Saskatchewan, Canada on the Canadian National Railways branch line out there on the prairies. Well, the first thing I did is I called Hallie, and I said, Hallie, don't leave yet. And she was literally ready to leave. She was packed and ready to go. I said, you're going to have to turn the show around. And she understood, and I went back to the car. And back then, there was no internet. We carried a copy of the official guide for the airlines, and we would literally write our own itinerary. And we kept enough money on hand that literally we could walk up to just about any airline terminal. And this is all pre, 9/11. There was no passports required to go to Canada. TSA was not even anybody's thought in their mind at that point. But we could walk up to a terminal with our itinerary and book our own trips. We were our own travel agents. And so I had gone and looked at the book and realized I'd have a 3-hour layover at O'Hare International Airport, which was 150 miles from Bloomington. So I got a hold of Hallie and I told her when that layover would be and that I would meet her at O'Hare, where the concourse met the terminal. I want to say it was Terminal 2, if I recall correctly. And then we would at least have 3 hours together. We hadn't seen each other in 3 months. We would have just 3 hours. She had taken a week off. We would only have 3 hours. Well, Hallie was a little frantic, but she said she could do it. And I called a cab. Or I take that back. I think Jack had his car with him. It was kind of an unusual situation. And hi, Chunkaroo and News 43 with JR. We're just telling a funny story about back in 1984. So, any rate, went to the airport. I want to say at Jonesboro, Arkansas. Went in, booked a flight that was leaving momentarily. Flew a puddle jumper from Jonesboro to Memphis. Then flew Republic Airlines out of Memphis. Now, mind you, I was in the Memphis terminal for approximately 15 minutes at the most. That's how much time I've actually spent in Memphis, Tennessee, proper. 15 minutes. Flew in to Memphis. Went ahead, ran over to Republic, showed him my ticket, said, "Yep, we've got you." Got on the airplane, off to O'Hare I flew. It's not a long hop. I can't even remember the flight. It was that quick. All I could think about was, my God, I hope Hallie makes it. Because Hallie wasn't a real good driver. But I knew she was on her way. And I prayed. Oh, I prayed. Well, plane lands at O'Hare, pulls up to the terminal, Skyway comes out. I walk up the Skyway, walk into the terminal, up the concourse, up to the juncture between the concourse and the terminal area. When I say terminal, I meant the first time I meant the concourse. But yeah, up the Skyway to the concourse, then up the concourse to the terminal. And you could hear a pin drop in that terminal. There was nobody there. It was crazy. There was nobody in the terminal. Just a handful of people. Wasn't busy at all. Well, next to Terminal 2 was Terminal 3. Terminal 3 is where Air Canada was. And she knew I would be flying out on Air Canada for Winnipeg. And then on to Saskatoon. And I turned and I looked, and there she was. And she was walking away from me. And I could always recognize Hallie from behind. She had the most beautiful raven black hair and green eyes you ever saw. And I knew it was her. And I said, "Hallie." and my voice carries. And I remember seeing her pause in her step. And then she kept walking. And I said, louder. And of course, people were looking. Hallie, turn around. It's Kurt, which is my given name. And Hallie stopped, went rigid, then turned around, screamed at the top of her lungs, flung her arms open, and I flung my arms open, and we ran to each other and grabbed each other in one of those moments that you see in a romance movie. And this wasn't the first time that Hallie and I had moments like that. And I remember grabbing her and picking her up and holding her, and she held me. And there were people applauding and whistling. We had 3 hours. 3 brief hours at an airport. Our world in a few moments had been turned upside down. Our plans just turned inside out. We hadn't seen each other in months, but we had just 3 hours. And of course, we did in those 3 hours what yuppies did in those 3 hours. And I'll leave that to your imaginations. And then the time so quickly arrived that I had to go back and catch that plane to Winnipeg and on to Saskatoon. I walked Hallie to her car. If I recall correctly, I walked her to her car first and set her on her way. And then I went back into the airport by myself and went to the lounge at Air Canada and then boarded the plane for Winnipeg. I think the plane was late. Oh, well, we couldn't have known that. And it was kind of crowded and dingy. Air Canada could be. And we flew into Winnipeg. And of course, when you arrive at Winnipeg, you have to go through customs. And I had my Canadian social insurance card. And at that time, Sperry Rail Service employees were given the red carpet treatment. So here's, 100 and some odd people get off the airplane. Everybody's got to go through customs. We're waiting in customs. I don't know. We might have waited 15 minutes for the customs officer to arrive. And Canadian bureaucracy can be downright comical. Or at least it was back in the day. We all knew what it was, That's one of the reasons why, Canadians are terminally nice, But the bureaucracy is what it is. And, of course, here comes a couple of customs agents. And the first thing they do is yell, "Is Mr. Biava here? We're looking for Kurt Biava." Everybody looks around, and I kind of blush like, "I am. Would you come with us, sir?" So everybody's looking at me like, who in the blue blazes is this guy? And so I go forward, And the two agents take me to the little room. They say, "Do you have anything to declare?" And it's like, "No, I don't. I just have my personal belongings, which are luggage." "Well, we understand that you're here to inspect railroad rail." I said, "Yes, that's correct." "You're working for Sperry Rail Service?" "Yes, you are." Or, "Yes, I am." "May we see your insurance card?" "Yes, you may." And I get out my Canadian Social Insurance card, and they say, "That's just wonderful. Okay, thank you very much. Would you follow us, please, and we'll guide you down to your next flight." Right. We come back out. Everybody else is still waiting at the, waiting at at the queue, right, at the wicket, so to speak. It wasn't really a wicket, but they're waiting to go through customs, right? And here I get the red carpet treatment. Oi. So then I get on the next plane, and we fly out of Winnipeg out of Winnipeg and into Saskatoon. So I arrive in Saskatoon, and it's hot, and I've just missed Canada Day because Canada Day is on the 1st. So it's a weekday. And you can't grab a cab at the cab stand at the Saskatoon airport to save your life. And I need to get downtown because I got to catch a train out to Warman, Saskatchewan. It's actually where I was supposed to catch up with the car. And between Warman and Humboldt, the car was actually based in Humboldt, but where I had found out it was close to Warman. So word had got back to me, things filter through. When you work for the Crown, word comes through where you need to be and when. So, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, it's kind of like that. Well, let me keep going. So finally, I managed to get a cab, but I know that train for Humboldt had left. So now I'm stuck in Winnipeg. Or not Winnipeg, but Saskatoon. Well, Sperry was part of Allegheny Industries, which also owned Holiday Inn. So we always went to the Holiday Inn. So I went to the Holiday Inn, flipped down my Amex card, said, "My name's Bruno Biava. I'm with Sperry Rail Service. Do you have a room?" Well, the place is wide open. There's nobody there. So I check in. Go to my room. Okay, wonderful. My romantic getaway with my fiance has just been screwed all to hell. I've missed Canada Day. I'm stuck in Winnipeg. I've missed the train. It's hot as blue blazes, and I'm stuck in a motel, or hotel, I should say, and there's nobody else in there. So, what do you do? Oh, they got a sauna. So I go ahead and, I got swim trunks and whatnot with me. I decided to go to the sauna. So I go to the sauna. Been in a sauna before. Already it's upper 90s outside, but at least when you can control it, it's a little bit better. But what the heck? It's either that or a hot pool, which I actually did. Not a hot pool, but it was actually kind of a nice pool because I came out of the sauna and went in the pool for a little bit. Came back out, dried out, went back to my room, threw on something casual, and I just had my carry-on with me. My heavy luggage was actually being handled separately. You did everything first class back then. You didn't do much in coach because you're paying top dollar and everything was spur of the moment. But now I'm stuck in Winnipeg or Saskatoon. Oh well, nothing on TV. I'm not going to sit in a room just bored, so I go to the bar. I go ahead and order a rye and 7-Up. I'd learned to drink rye the first time I was in Canada. I wasn't aiming to get drunk. Just something to relax, destroy time. And wouldn't you know it, there's one other guy on this side of the bar. One. So we strike up a conversation. Where are you from? He says, California. I said, really? We're in California. I said, oh, down around Newport Beach. I said, really? He says, yeah, you know Newport? I said, oh, yeah. Yeah. You know when you come up into Costa Mesa? Come up the hill? He says, yeah. I said, over on the on the left-hand side of the road, there's a place called Eve's Sandwich Shop. And all of a sudden, he kind of tenses up. Yeah. I said, Evelyn, have you ever been in? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been in there. And he's starting, his voice is starting to crack and everything. And I'm like, well, Evelyn's my stepmother. He says, you know Bruno? I said, yeah, Bruno's my dad. You know him? He says, oh, yeah. Yeah, I know your dad. Right? And his voice is cracking. He's turning white as a sheet. I said, well, I'll be damned. He said, you're his son? I said, yeah. He says, you're Kurt. I said, yeah. Oh, what are you doing here in Saskatoon? I said, I'm working for Sperry Rail Service, and I'm on my way out to a detector car. What are you doing here? He says, oh, I'm just killing time. I said, well, I guess we got something in common. How long are you going to be here? He's like, oh, I'm leaving right now. And he was out of there like a shot. It's like, wow, that's weird. Well, Dad and I weren't real close. We hadn't reconnected on the maritime level yet. All he knew is I was out railroading. He thought it was a waste of time. Like, okay, whatever. Weird coinky dink. Don't want to bother the old man. So I finish my drink, have a nice supper. Go back to my room, crash, get up early the next day. CN shows up, or I take that back. A bus shows up, and I take a bus out to Warman because the train doesn't run that day. Get off at the depot, take a look around Warman, got some time to destroy before the next train, or Humboldt, I take that back, it was Humboldt, before the next train out to Warman. Now this car is short-handed. There's only 2 operators on it. You need 3 as a minimum, right? So it's the chief and the senior operator, and there's no stooge, which means he's fallen behind. And I can't get there just by wishing my way there. So I go uptown. I got a little time, and I opened up an account at the Bank of Montreal, the branch there, because that was kind of recommended that you had a Canadian bank account. So I went in, and the neat thing was that the Bank of Montreal had branches all across Canada. So, you cash a check and, survive. Except for most of my checks were being sent off to Bloomington and to Hallie, because we had a joint checking account. So I go back to the station, hang around, watch the prairie dogs pop up and down between the tracks and the yard. And that was kind of comical to watch. Finally, a high rail truck shows up. And I take a long, fast ride out to Warman, where the car actually was, and get on the car. And then resume my work. End of story, right? Wrongo. This is where the romantic comedy or tragedy turns really tragic. A few weeks later, I can't remember where we were. I decided for some reason to call Dad, just to tell him about the funny encounter I had in Saskatoon. How's the railroad going? Well, it is. How was your trip? Interesting. Real interesting. Well, how so? I said, you'll never guess what happened in Saskatoon. I said, what? I said, and I can't even remember this guy's name right now. I said, I ran into somebody that said that he knew you. He says, where? I said, in Saskatoon at the Holiday Inn. When? About 2 weeks ago. Who was it? I told him, and Dad just friggin' exploded. He had been my father's bookkeeper, cooked the books, and made out with no small sum of his money. And he, my father, was absolutely livid as hell that I didn't call him right away. How was I supposed to know? He never told me any of this. Am I just supposed to just pick this up out of osmosis? I mean, Dad was always like, look, I'm busy, son. Don't bother me. Okay. But yeah. Then I understood why that individual's damn nervous when I showed up. He was probably expecting the RCMP to show up in just a few moments and pick him up. That there had been a warrant issued, which actually there was, in the United States. He had fled to Canada to avoid that warrant. I had no knowledge of this. None. But yeah. And of course, like I said, I was in Canada on July 4th, which is today. 4 July 2025. And I got up a few hours ago, and I got to thinking, about it and just reminiscing. I just thought I'd go online and tell you guys about the story. World's a funny place, especially when you're in your 20s, even into your 30s. You just never know. So that's it. Let's see who's checked in here. Wow, there's 3 people watching this thing. I got 2 likes. I'm going to scroll back through here and see what everybody says. Of course, Layla said hello. And L had a funny thing. News 43 with JR said hey and happy 4th of July. And Viana says happy 4th of July. And Chunkaroo says, how are we doing today? Fine, sir. Well, yeah, we're doing good. Asked what he's doing what we're doing for lunch. I can't decide. I don't know. I haven't got my breakfast yet. I got a croissant sitting over here I need to chow down on, which I'm going to do in a few minutes. And the Greek has checked in and said, "Hey, friend, how are you doing, Greek? It's good to see you. Good to see you. It's always fun to know that there's a few people follow me around on this thing. Because really, it's not about me. I mean, I just told the story because I thought I'd tell the story, just to reminisce for a while. And I really appreciate all you sitting through this and everything. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's going to be pretty much about it. Just wanted to pop up online and on the live chat, live trap. Yeah, the live chat and the live stream and just say hey and tell you guys a funny story. Every once in a while, people want me to tell a funny story. That's a long one. But yeah, there are all kinds of twists and turns in it. But life's like that. Just don't know. So, we've been at this for 40 minutes. I take that back. 41 minutes and 2, 3, 5 seconds. And looks like it's about 1600. Coming up on 1600. It's actually 1555 UTC. And the Greek says there's a new state on YouTube with a crown and XP points. Oh, okay. I thought I saw that the other morning when I was online about top fans or something like that. I think it's like the first fan that comes up or subscriber or whatever it is that comes up and makes a comment or I'm not really sure how that works. I'm kind of dense in those things. And but yeah, I'm glad to see that you're here. Doesn't matter if you're top or not. I'm always glad to see that you're here. It means a lot. Means a lot. Because, if it wasn't for you guys, like I said, I'd be just talking into a smartphone. So how's everybody else doing out there? Might as well have a little conversation before I go. Yeah. Looks like we got 3 people here. And the Greek says, a small corner of reality in live stream. Oh, yeah. And Chunkaroo says, I'm tiling my backsplash. That sounds like fun, but, whatever you got to get done. And he said, and Chunkaroo says, so it could be better, LOL. Yeah, but once you get that backsplash done, ain't that going to be nice? You're going to be ahead of it there. Yeah. Oh, I wish I could be outside today. It's really quite nice. I'm going to turn the thing. You can see how bright it is outside, and such. But yeah, the steps today are just a bit much for me. I had, I'm still got a lot of pain in my hip and my leg, and I'm sitting like this. It's not too bad, but if I stand up, yeah, it starts hurting real bad. So, but we make the best of it here, right? Yep. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting into a shower on Monday. Cross your fingers there. Whew. Yeah, it's been a week since I've been able to take a shower. It's not because anything's wrong with the place I live in. It's the fact that with my leg being messed up the way it is right now, or my hip, or whatever it is, and as weak as it is, no, absolutely not. And that bathroom I've got is kind of cramped and ill-engineered for me to even take a sponge bath. So I am definitely ready for a shower. I've got the little public transit bus is going to come by on Monday morning and pick me up with a lift. First time I'm ever going to ride that lift. And take me approximately, I don't know, a quarter mile down to the truck stop here in town, the Love's Travel Center. They have nice big showers. I plug down $18 and hopefully be able to get in and out of that shower and get clean. And then it's going to take it's going to take me 4 minutes to get there. It's going to take me probably 20 minutes to get home. And then by that time, I'm probably going to be totally shot because of the pain in my hip. And struggle up the stairs, come inside, make myself a little lunch, and think about the next step in my life. Getting back around to Hallie, I think Hallie did okay. I think Hallie found the man of her dreams. Every once in a while, I do a search on her. I think I've seen pictures of her daughter. And yeah. I'm thankful for that. I hope she has all the joy in the world that she saw it. And whoever got Hallie, you're a lucky man indeed. She may not have been the love of my life, but for a brief moment, she gave me something that was very, very precious. And that was hope. Yeah, and the Greek says he's staying home today. The holidays have people being too dangerous. Boy, isn't that the truth? And Chunkaroo says, I'm picture framing my window, so it's very meticulous work right now. Well, yeah, I get that. Yeah, I bet you that's going to be beautiful when it's done. I hope you've got a good view out of that. And the Greek says, try walking steps backwards. It's slow, but easier on the legs. Yeah. Well, it's a nice thought, but I've got to use this this rollator walker to move around because my balance is shot to begin with, or it's not entirely shot, but it's shot enough to be dangerous. And when I put any weight whatsoever on that right leg, I do occasionally cry out in pain and tear up. It's that intense. Scary. Real scary. Like I said, I pray it's just bursitis. If it's bursitis, I can work my way through it. And yes, there are times I have to walk backwards, but it's scary to walk backwards. It really is. Because I could fall backwards, strike my head on the floor, and it's all over. Nobody's going to know for, well, who knows, until somebody notices the stink. And that kind of happens around here every once in a while. I don't want to really be the person that, goes that way, and then the first responders show up and go, oh my God. Because that's hard as hell on them. Yeah. So, and the Greek says, oh yeah, he's still there. So. So I don't know. Let's see what happens. Right now, all I'm thinking about is my breakfast, which is getting cold, which is okay. Manna's manna. There's foods I really like and foods that, but, it's manna. And it's nearly time for lunch, so this is brunch. And it was fun to come on and reminisce for a little bit, to visit with you guys. I really do appreciate you. You're a godsend. You're a godsend. And the Greek asked, do you take Tylenol or aspirin? Well, I'm taking ibuprofen. It's just a generic ibuprofen you get at Wally's. You know, walnuts, as my Aunt Dory used to say. Go out to the walnuts shop. Yeah. And yeah, I'm taking quite a bit of that. Kind of falling back on how it was back in the day uh, when I was having my back issues. So, and Chunkaroo says I was a tile installer for almost 10 years. Laugh out loud. I just hate doing it at me house. Oh, I know how you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know that. I know that feeling too. Oh yes, oh yes. I know that feeling too, Chunkaroo. And Ellis Thalmeyer says hello. Hi, Ellis. How are you doing? Yeah, yeah. So, Chunkaroo, I got to ask, how was the motorcycle ride yesterday? How'd that work out going back and forth? I mean, you're obviously survived. That's a good thing. Oh. And Alice says that they're doing good. How am I doing today? Well, I'm upright and taking nourishment. That's about it. I hope you're doing real good today, Ellis. Well, Ellis is asking how my legs are today. We just kind of talked about that for a second. My right leg is still pretty messed up from the hip down. Oh, and I have some reasons to be concerned, but they exist, you know, and we're just one half step at a time and hanging on. We're thankful we've got what we've got, even if it is painful. And yet, like I said, yes, the pain can get to be so bad that I literally tear up and cry. I'm using some really colorful language around here, to say the least. I think God understands that, you know, I'm not saying it towards him. It's just that I kind of like for him to do something about this pain and my inability to walk real well. It's kind of frightening. But he's there. Or, how should I say, the monarch is watching, as is the Lord. Kishida. So listen, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. And Alice is asking real quick, how is Lisa Tarbuck doing? Do you know? Actually, I don't. The last I heard anything was actually on her program when she said that she was going to be off this week. And you have to remember, Lisa's going through a patch right now, too. She's broken her leg and been in a boot. And she's a very, very intelligent and inquisitive woman. And being bound up and stuff, that can really catch up with you. So let's just pray her friends came and collected her this week and that she's on a nice holiday, watching the gulls and enjoying a nice cool spot. And I know that's kind of hard to find in Britain right now because they're in a heat wave. But let's hope that Lisa's and pray that Lisa's fine. And the Greek has remarked, a friend I know recently lost his legs to infection. Keep the circulation good. Yeah, we're praying. We're praying. We're trying. We're trying. So, well, listen, kids. Like I said, I got to have my breakfast, and maybe I'll come back on afterwards. You know, maybe in an hour or so. We'll just see how it goes. In the meantime, you guys have a great 4th of July or Independence Day or whatever you want to call it, no matter where you are in the world. Thanks for joining. I really appreciate it. And remember to be kind, respectful. Self-depreciating humor is a good thing. And yeah, Laugh at yourself for some of your foibles and misadventures. I know I do. Boy, if I had a few. And yeah, give thanks in all things. So, until next time, good luck, Godspeed, and we'll see you around town.